everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex, once again joined by my good buddy Mark Darden. This is Big Baby Reviews, and we're continuing on with our look at the I guess establishing storylines of all the founding fathers at Image Comics in 1992. We are looking at today Erik Larsen and the end of the miniseries, the Savage Dragon miniseries, his first offering for Image, Savage Dragon issue number 3. As you can see from the cover here, he battles BEDROCK, who has not yet had his name change. And I would say, other than a few cameos in other Image books that we've looked at, this is maybe our first full kind of Marvel-style crossover that we get at Image Comics between Savage Dragon and BEDROCK.
Yeah. I like the cover. This one's the most action-oriented. I mean, cover 2 was really good. Cover 1 was the one where it's kind of like, you're just seeing the character, but nothing's really happening. One thing that this issue struck me about is that everybody does Youngblood better than Rob. I mean, because like Jim Lee uses them to what? Protect the vice president. Cool. You know, in-country kind of matter they got to take care of. You got Todd McFarlane has BEDROCK show up and he's all giddily playing video games while Chapel's a total piece of shit bad dude. You've got Jim Valentino has BEDROCK get like his Hollywood deal and he's all excited and he's doing the phone calls and waiting, and then his show comes out and nothing. And Erik Larsen has him show up and be a total idiot kid who has a dumb idea and executes it because there's no adult to stop him. And then the Youngblood guys have to show up and like, you were a dumb kid on this one. And like everybody gets Youngblood except for the guy who's making the book.
Yeah, it feels like all the guys who have Youngblood kind of cameo or guest star in their books have, gone to the descriptions that we've talked about a lot that were in like Comic Scene and Wizard and stuff that we never got in the Youngblood series. And they're actually kind of following that. So like you said, it seems like the more authentic Youngblood to what we were expecting seem to be everywhere and in each series except for the actual Youngblood series by Rob Liefeld. Yeah. So right on that.
Yeah, it really struck me. The other thing that struck me is as much as this is, Savage Dragon is my favorite miniseries of the original 6, 7, if you count, and I think mass majority agrees, like this was the best one because the art's so consistent. Erik did such a good job. But in storyline, almost everything's in issue 1, and then it's just declining values in issue 2 and then issue 3, because issue 1, we get introduced to the dragon. We don't really learn much about him. He's a cop, he's got amnesia, he's kind of a quippy guy, and he's a good guy. Then we're introduced to Super Patriot, who gets mangled. We're introduced to Mighty Man, who gets killed in his mortal form. We're introduced to Star, help save a woman, kind of it. We're introduced to his partner, Murphy. We don't learn anything about her. And we're introduced to Nurse Anne, who we also don't learn anything about. And he fights some freaks for a few pages, and then he fights a gang. And that's issue 1. Issue 2, we get a 7-page fight against a horrible Spider-Man. Has to be taken out. Revisit Nurse Anne. Revisit Frank, but get a hint that something's wrong. We're reminded Dragon has amnesia, in case you forgot. We introduced Super Patriot as a cyborg, introduced Debbie as a love interest, and then 14 pages of battling the freaks, during which we see Super Patriot come back, get some revenge, get knocked out, Savage Dragon goes down. What do we get in this issue? It's going to be a little less.
At least plot-wise, yeah. Basically,
plot-wise, yeah. Art-wise, gorgeous. It's
some great stuff for sure.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
Few comments on the cover, just in relation to kind of what you said. Yeah, issue 1 was kind of just a kind of showcase of the character coming at you, powerful kind of dynamic Image. I feel like there's a similar composition here between issue 2 and 3, where it's like the Savage Dragon facing off against the other character. In this case, number 2, Super Patriot, issue 3, BEDROCK. And it's kind of the same kind of, I guess, point of view or close-up of the two characters, right? So there's something about those two covers that just feel very similar to me for issue 2 and 3, which is not bad in any way. But maybe just a little bit more differentiation between issues 2 and 3 would have been fun. A further away shot, an extreme close up or something. I just find their composition kind of similar, and
Yeah.
slightly repetitive, but not that it's a bad drawing in any way. I think it looks really cool. It's always fun to see other Image guys doing other Image guys characters. So seeing Eric Larson do Bedrock, I assumed he'd do a good job, and he definitely did here. Bedrock looks pretty darn cool, drawn by Eric Larson. One little also kind of just aesthetic drawing thing. I noticed on this cover, Eric Larson draws those kind of lines around Bedrock's head. I wasn't sure if that was just detail on his armor,
Oh yeah,
or if that's meant to be like a surprised kind of thing. I don't see Eric Larson doing a lot of that, so I just wanted to point that out, especially on a cover. It just feels kind of funny if you notice it. Maybe some people don't.
Notice it, but, I see what you're talking about. Right? I think the reason that covers strike you as similar is because Dragon has a very similar action pose, and most of them coming at a similar angle with the same with the fist always up front.
Is very similar, right? Like
I see what you're talking about. There is a lot of similarity to them.
Still a cool looking cover though. Not
it. Yeah. Still love it. Yeah.
Third rockin' issue. This one's rockin'.
Yeah. Every time he has a quip about it. Yeah. Keeping the formula. All right. Let's
crack into the issue.
Yeah. So the credits don't change. He keeps the same people. I don't think even editor. Yep. Nope. Everybody's the same. So he has a great consistency across his miniseries, which I think all of them do, except for Rob keeps switching out and adding people throughout the miniseries. And Jim Valentino does add an inker, which was a really good move. His books benefit big time by getting that assistant. But most of the other guys, they got a good solid team and stuck with it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that next issue, Shadowhawk, that we're looking at, because like you said, Chance Wolf is the anchor who kind of comes along, and he really helps Valentino kind of push his art more into the Image aesthetic and the Image kind of West Coast style hatching. That, like you said, I think also definitely benefits Valentino and his art. There's a little blurb on the credits here. Special thanks this month go to Rob Liefeld for the use of Bedrock and Youngblood, and to Spawn's mod crew, McFarlane, Olaf, and Orzechowski, for whom we blatantly homaged the Spawn TV bid. I'll be talking about that when we get to it, because I pulled out my issue of Spawn number 4 here, and we're going to compare and contrast a little bit, because there's obviously, as a kid, I know, hey, some of this looks familiar and similar, and when we get there, we'll look at it. You'll find out why.
Yeah, it really is fun how much little stuff they did like that to link up their comics, and there was a lot of work put into doing that.
Yeah, we talked about in those early days. It was really fun when they do any kind of connective tissue, kind of that Marvel style thing of establishing a shared universe, right? Even though up to this point we've mostly just had little cameos and stuff. But again, our first full blown kind of crossover at Image Comics in Savage Dragon number 3.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Eric sticks with his pattern of like splash page, double page splash, which kind of he got from Kirby. That's, that was Kirby's thing, and Eric's keeping it going. And we just get this big shot of this fiery guy, another guy from the Freaks trying to take out Dragon.
I like the use of Kirby Crackle for this guy's just kind of skin complexion here. I think that works really well.
Oh, yeah.
And probably adds a lot of drawing time too to doing a character like this. It looks really cool, but it's got to be somewhat time consuming to throw all that in. But again, I really like how it works out, and his basic visual aesthetic look I think looks really cool. And this is kind of a throwaway character. I don't think we're ever going to see him again, really. Maybe later on in the regular series, but I don't remember that. So I don't want to say it's wasted, but it's a really cool design that we're not going to see a lot of. And even his color scheme, which is pretty monochromatic, and obviously yellows, oranges, and reds relating to fire, right? Obviously his name is Inferno, so that makes sense. And just a rare page of monochromatic coloring on this first splash page that I think works really well. Obviously, there's little bits of gray and some of the glass there, but pretty much monochromatic overall.
Yeah, and then tons of shards of glass. So another bit that's not really hard to do, but very time consuming.
Oh, yeah, I've done a couple in my own series, and I kind of cursed myself for having thrown that sequence in there. But once I was done doing it and it worked out pretty well, I was pretty happy with it. one little detail, I remember the kayfabe guys talking about this, when you're doing the, smashing through the window scene, you want to have shards of glass overlapping the character. And I find it kind of interesting that Larson does it here on the splash page, right? He's got those little bits in front of his leg, in front of his shoulder, and here and there.
Yep.
And then when you turn to the double page splash, there's none of it, which I thought was kind of just odd. I don't know if he was thinking it helps frame the character better or whatever, but when you look at the figure on the left there, literally no overlapping glass on it. And I thought it was just a little odd. I guess maybe he's thinking in the sequence of the action, he's busted through the window. You've got the shards of glass on the first splash page. And then at this point, he's past all that, maybe. I guess that's what he was thinking in the sequence. I'm not quite sure.
The glass carries forward.
Yeah.
Because you'll see some of it in his blast, but I totally see what you're talking about and agree with you.
Oh, there is a little bit, blast there.
But it should still be some in front of his body. It makes sense.
Just because you've done it already and now all of a sudden there's none, it just feels a little odd. And Larson's great at layering images and stuff. Not that it flattens it in any way, but that extra little bit of overlapping glass would have just added that extra bit of layering that I think would have been cool. But still a pretty cool double page splash overall. Cool action shot. Dragon's in a pretty extreme jumping pose here, with his two-toed feet really prominent in the front. Always thought that looked a little weird.
Yeah. So that's probably one new detail. I don't know if we got to see that before, but the turtles only had the two toes, and Eric's kind of keeping that going. And he was a big Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan since he brings it over to Image as well. The only other thing, so Eric's one of the guys who had a letterer from the get-go and stuck with that letter. Todd's got Tom, who stuck with the series, did a great job out the gates. Eric brought over Chris, who's great letterer. And you can get lettering fonts from him. He's done a ton of them. He has his own website. It's fantastic stuff. But it's funny that he combines two lettering styles, do it for one of the effects. And I wonder, was that an artistic choice to do this more like classical defined lettering style and then go over into a more comic-y lettering style, or was that I got to get this done and I got this one here and I'm just gonna I'm grabbing this and I'm grabbing this and boom, I'm putting them down, throw on a color, throw on an effect.
It does seem like an odd choice because you would assume that the sound would be the same from both hands, throwing out the whatever that fire beam is, right? So there's visually a disconnect there between the same thing happening. The sound is similar, though. I've talked about how I love paying attention to the sound effects and reading them out. So scrack at the top and scrack-a-boosh. Scrack-a-boosh is a little weird to me.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure exactly what that's supposed to evoke, but okay, I'll take it, I guess.
Yeah, not getting too overly serious with it.
No, of course not.
Yeah, and this is just a quick action sequence to get the issue going because every issue's started with an action sequence, this one being the shortest. Just smashes this guy into a wall, and then I do like in the background of it where we see the police officer's gun, like the police are already running in.
Yeah.
Which we already saw them in the other issue, but because this is the other issue, the previous page, but since this is a different angle and he wanted to still get the police into the scene, the gun coming from the hallway effectively into the room first, just letting us know they're still there.
And it drives home the point that kind of Dragon is just taking care of this really quickly. Like the police don't even have time to react. He's superhuman. He reacts faster than they do, right?
Yeah, and it's done. It's cool how there's 4 pages of seeing this Inferno guy with the Kirby crackle, as you say, and the fire and whatnot, and then boom, he gets knocked out, and the power just turns off, and he's in a just in a suit with the harness, which kind of a cool look.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think that idea works really well here. And then you actually see him on the next page as well, and I was always kind of surprised the fact that Dragon shoved his head through a wall, that he looks to be in pretty good shape overall. In the next panel, he's not passed out or anything there. He's, seems to be lucid.
No, I think he's passed out. I think they're carrying him off. It just is an odd pose.
I feel like his eyes are open. Am I wrong in seeing that? Let me check out the comic here.
Yeah, he doesn't speak. and he's kind of hunched down. I mean, it's unlikely someone could carry him quite how he is, but it looks like the police officer has his hands under the guy's armpits, so he's supposed to be carrying him away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like because there's that little bit of white in his eye that always anytime I looked at that drawing, I was like, well, he seems like to be conscious here, and maybe he shouldn't be. But you're probably right. That's probably the intention they wanted, but that little white speck just threw me off.
Yeah, it needs to be hunched over a little more.
The sound effect here, choom, when I look at that, I have to assume, I'm pretty sure Gregory Wright was the letterer on Walt Simonson's Thor run from the 80s. That's very popular because a lot of the sound effects are very reminiscent.
Gregory Wright's the colorist.
Sorry, Gregory Wright is the colorist.
Yeah. Chris is the letterer.
Who is it? Chris Eliopoulos. My mistake. So I feel like he's probably, I'd have to look back, but I feel like he was lettering that Walt Simonson Thor stuff because the sound effects, a lot of them are just pretty much the same fonts and stuff that you would see in that Thor book in the Walt Simonson stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's got them built up already.
And it makes sense because I think Eric Larson has some Walt Simonson influence in his art. So I think, there's something aesthetically that works really well with both guys and that type of lettering. Yeah, so not much more to say about the sequence. I mean, it's basically just, once again, Dragon getting attacked by the Vicious Circle and dispatching that character of Inferno pretty quickly here. And the cops just kind of standing around watching the results of Savage Dragon's, defense against this character here.
Yeah, then page 5, what they do is give a nice sum up of what we, the audience, and Savage Dragon himself didn't see of the aftermath after the fight. They tell us that, oh yeah, and then Super Patriot got up and walked away, but he looked like he wasn't even conscious, something was just doing it for him, remote control. So that's kind of a neat detail. Would have been kind of cool if he drew it. It's as they're talking, maybe in a small strip going across, it just showed him
kind of a flashback panel or something. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if she was talking, if there was a strip going across or something showing him waltzing away, all, looking creepy and weird because he's just under a program control, that would have been a neat detail to have. But yeah,
at least Eric gave us the actual fight last issue, right? If we compare with
right.
I'm comparing with Rob Liefeld on Youngblood, where they refer to the fight, but we never actually saw it with the Thor, right? Kind of similar early on. So.
Right. The two fights we didn't see. Yeah. But as always, Eric does a great job, even in these conversations. We're getting different angles, different viewpoints, because we're getting straight on and then a little bit of an angle and then flashback to Dragon and then do a side view. It's always really.
He's always been good at varying those angles to make sure that the hockey scenes are still kind of fun to look at visually, for sure.
Yeah. And then this issue, we saw it in issue 2 where he started shadowing things and blacking out areas to get through quicker. And we see even more of that in this issue, but it's always used effectively where it's it's a time saver, but it also aesthetically is really working because that panel 1, he blacks out most of the figures, but he does it in a cool way where there's some lines and some of the details are detailed. So I like it. He uses those cool dragon silhouettes in multiple panels. And yeah, it's quicker, but it also really effectively works.
I already see a little bit of that kind of rougher inking style that he'll see more of, in the regular series. I guess he's starting to kind of ramp it up a little bit here, right? I would say that issue 1 and 2 maybe are just a little bit slicker when it comes to the inking. Not that it bothers me. I like kind of both versions of Eric Larson. And this one's working for me too. I think for kind of a rough and tumble character like the Dragon, it fits the character of the book.
Yeah, I agree. And this page, story-wise, just reminds us, oh, hey, while you were gone, we've just been getting overrun. We can't handle the freaks, even us and even Star, because he's a regular guy who shoots stars. So he was helping out. Don't forget he exists. Again, story-wise, it's very minor. The page next to it, we do get a lot of cool detail. This is another one where it connects the Image universe a lot because while we get to see, Youngblood, and we see a connection to Spawn. In this one, cyber data that's from Cyberforce is also connected to the Savage Dragon universe, where that's where some of the freaks are coming from. And they actually cyber data continues to have a part in the Savage Dragon plot, but Super Patriot was armed up by cyber data, and then Overlord paid them to like, hey, I got a problem. So they sent their new agent, Super Patriot, to take out the 3 freaks that we saw, who apparently were getting too big for their britches and were trying to come up. And so Overlord, behind the scenes, hired cyber data to take them out, and they failed. So he's like, you failed me. I'll never work with you again. But cyber data continues to have a big role in Savage Dragon, and that's another cool crossover link.
Yeah, I think their effect on the Savage Dragon series lasted longer than on the actual series it originated from, which is Cyberforce.
Right.
Right. And I do appreciate the guy on the screen there. Even though it's a faraway shot and we get very little detail, you can recognize that he is one of those kind of executive type characters that we do actually see in Cyberforce as well. So he's not drawn this guy out of nowhere. It's actually pretty obscure reference, but it is a reference to a character from Cyberforce.
Yeah, there's also a good point about Cyberforce in here, because while he's arguing with them, he's like, oh yeah, and I hear some of your guys got away and are on the run. So we get a detail about Cyberforce that I feel like we didn't even get it in Cyberforce's miniseries.
Yeah, I
They
see what you're saying.
Be a part of cyber data and have gone rogue.
We've, by this point, with Savage Dragon #3, we probably know more about cyber data from Savage Dragon than from Cyberforce. Again, it's kind of like this weird thing. I just wanted to mention that I really like the layout on this page. The 2 vertical panels, the first one, the establishing shot, I really think is clever, because the building they're in is the tallest and most vertical building, obviously, in Chicago. It's represented in a vertical panel, which makes total sense. And just to drive home the point how long and skinny it is, you even have the next panel kind of overlapping a little bit and cropping that panel even more. And all these just little bits of overlap here, where basically we've got like a 3-panel page, just adds that extra layering, that extra depth that we don't really have that much, because we've just kind of got the flat money shot of Overlord kind of just standing there. I really like the kind of creative layout that he's done here. And even Overlord himself overlaps the next panel. All of that, I think, is just really fun and clever stuff.
Yeah. And the lines behind Overlord is reminiscent of what we saw Jim Valentino do in Shadowhawk, that he keeps doing and developing. But we saw Todd McFarlane use it a little bit in Spawn 3, and now we're seeing Eric Larson do it in Savage Dragon 3. I don't know if they all fell across the same idea or if they saw it in his and liked it. I don't know.
It was just something that was going around, it seems like, around this time that a lot of the Image guys were using.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just an extra added little design element that if you're just going to do kind of a guy standing there kind of in negative space, it just, again, helps create kind of an extra bit of layering to the image.
Yeah. So we get one of the small plot points. This woman, Amanda, who got saved in issue #1, where Star helped out, and then she wants to come thank Savage Dragon, and then we get reminded, hey, Nurse Anne exists, and hey, I was there when Mighty Man died, and it was so horrible, and I'd hate it if that happened to you, and I saw you when they brought you in. It's a lot of plot. It's fun how many panels he does. I mean, he does 15 panels on the page on the right, but on this page on the left, you're still getting, what is that? That's 10 panels. So it's 25 panels across 2 pages. It's quite a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah. I also like the sequence for the fact that it's foreshadowing a little bit about Mighty Man, or the newest version of Mighty Man that we're going to get.
Yeah.
I feel like, some of the Image guys maybe were doing stuff and later on figured, oh, I can use what I established here and extrapolate on it and push forward. But I feel like Larson was already, when he set up this scene, he already knew that, spoilers, that this nurse here would be the new Mighty Man, or the newest version of Mighty Man. And I feel like he just planned a little bit more ahead for stuff that's going to pay off later on in the regular series than the other Image guys.
Yeah. That initial panel of Amanda walking in is very much it's kind of reminiscent of The Spirit, because it does a great job of establishing a room with almost no detail, of just
Yeah.
having white space with a little bit of black, and then but there's a door open, so there's lots of detail there, which definitely draws your eye to her. There's some hallway detail and a little picture on the wall to basically create a wall with just the white. But I do love that, of just white area, but door opens up into it.
It's really a panel within a panel within a panel. Like you get the whole image, then you've got the shadow in the room that panels it again, and then you've got the doorway that panels the Amanda character as well. So it's like, yeah, very
Yeah.
clever use of design and paneling, for lack of a better term here.
And then the shadow detail that's used again, whereas they're going into Kiss, like you've got the panel before with full details on Amanda. It goes to the next panel. We bring in Savage Dragon, but part of his face is in shadow, her face is in shadow, but the hands detailed, and then just the silhouettes for the almost Kiss moment. It's quick, but also very effective.
Very cool. I'm reminded too by seeing this character Amanda. He did something in the regular series where she appears on a page. I think it's with Star or something like that, where she discovers him having fallen through the window or the skylight or something. And I always remember looking at that page and going, "This is very familiar." And I found out recently that basically, you know, my instinct was right. He had actually recycled the page from his Spider-Man run with Mary Jane, who looks exactly like Amanda, right? And the hairstyle and everything. He changed a few things and he just replaced Spider-Man on that page with Star. So you can look that up, on Facebook on the Eric Larson group or Comic Swipes page or anything like that. And, there's always something that bugged me about that page. And once I realized, went back and looked at that Spider-Man issue, it is literally the exact same page, just with a few art changes. Like I said, he swaps out Spider-Man for Star. Kind of a prank, I guess, that Larson was pulling there.
Yeah, it also makes sense with Star, since he did have he recycled how Spider-Man moved, put that into Star, since he
100%. Yeah, and the even the anatomy, the body type, just slightly skinnier, kind of muscular guy. Absolutely. Yeah, Star was always kind of built on that Spider-Man model.
Yeah. And so once we've got, this little bit of pesky plot out the way, basically Savage Dragon, he gets into this press conference for 2 pages. We get to see a lot more like that shadowy stuff. I mean, at least with the image of all of the press people with their microphones forward, which does work really effective, of having silhouettes of the dragon and Frank and then all the press people. But Savage Dragon just gives a little press conference where they're asking him questions, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm back. I'm going to be going after the criminals. I'm a good guy. I'm going to help you all out." It's effectively the story for 2 pages. Again, it's all cool art.
Yeah, the use of the silhouettes for the media is just a smart drawing. Because it could get very complicated and very detailed, and leaving it all in silhouette. In that first panel, we recognize those things as microphones, makes total sense. And then we get the 4th panel, which kind of reinforces that, where we get the microphones and the silhouette of the media people. And I really like that panel there, where you see Savage Dragon in profile and silhouette as well. That panel there just works really well.
Yeah, they also do something in this spread that we saw it in Cyberforce issue 2, where there were the bad guys and they forgot to put the color in, so there was just a background wash.
Yeah.
And we get something similar in this, except it's on purpose, where in panel 2 of the page on the right, there's all of the media members coming after Savage Dragon, but they're just all done in brown to about the same color as the wall, because they're not the focus detail.
Yeah, they use the desaturated colors for the background as opposed to the slightly kind of more saturated, brighter blue of Savage Dragon, the green. Yep. Definitely works.
And then we get the reporter following Savage Dragon to lead into what is effectively the whole rest of the issue.
Yeah, just slugfest.
Yeah, this giant fight with Bedrock. And this is why I'm kind of like, issue number 1, you get a whole lot of details. Pretty much the whole setup's there. Issue 2 peppers in a few more details. And then this issue, you get a couple details, and then it's basically this giant, very beautiful fight, but giant fight. Bedrock looks exactly like he should. I do love, I mean, it's a great double page spread. This issue has 3 different double page spread or double page splashes, excuse me. But the mouth jaw bit that he does on Savage Dragon, and I wonder if there's an example that he works from, but having that jaw go off to the side to really show the power of the punch, and the lip going up and out, and
that
the
little
one
spray of blood coming out.
Yeah, and the eye wink. It's, you know, one eye closed, as well as the effect behind it, doing the lines with, you know, the Powell lines behind it is really effective for all bringing home the power of this punch.
If you've ever seen those videos in slow motion of, you know, UFC fights and boxers when they get hit and their face starts to kind of twist, that's what the sense I'm getting here. And it's hard to do in a static image. And I think, like you said, he really succeeded here in kind of distorting the face in a way that it looks like he's being hit really hard, right? It's not just a weird distortion. We understand what's going on and that it's a result of Bedrock's punch. I had a quick question. Do you remember Bedrock wearing gloves like this?
Gosh.
Maybe early on. Like, I feel like Larson is the kind of guy who's going to look, you know, at reference material, look at some Youngblood drawings by Rob Liefeld. And I feel like it's probably one of these instances where early on Bedrock had the gloves. And then, you know, how Liefeld is consistent with the costume designs in that he's not at all and they keep changing.
Right.
So I wonder where he would have gotten this idea that Bedrock, oh, there you go.
In the Rock the Vote ad.
Yeah. So I think maybe that was part of Bedrock early on, and then again, Rob Liefeld changed the design, and it just always looked a little bit out of place on Bedrock for me for some reason. Why would he wear gloves?
Why do superheroes do a lot of the things they do? But
that's true. That's true.
Now, in addition to like that face, the massive detail put into the arms. I mean, all the hairs that are drawn in, the crazy illogical veins, but that are awesome looking. You know, he's got veins everywhere, and takes time to still establish that there's a background. You know, something that would have gotten left out by some other guys. Like, you still got trees in the background. We've got cars. There's
buildings,
silhouette of the city in the background, just enough detail. Like, we're all still established in this world. You know, you can really feel like you're looking at it and like you're there, versus we know somebody else who would have just shown the punch and there would have just been some lines in the back.
Let the colorist take care of that.
Yeah. Versus here, we get, even if it's not highly detailed, like, we still know these are trees. We definitely know those are cars and buildings. It's well done. And it makes sense that anything further back off into, you know, near the horizon would have less detail and less saturated colors, right? That's just how things are in reality. Yeah. Despite the lack of story, the art in this,
it's killer. Yeah. It's probably one of the better issues of the miniseries, I think, art-wise. Not that the other ones are bad in any way, but, you know, we've talked about Larson obviously excels at the fights and the foreshortening and the dynamic action. So we're getting just a crap load of it here. And you mentioned that effect behind Savage Dragon, the effect of the punch, I think works so well. Looks really cool here. And one last thing I want to add is, I don't know if they do it all throughout the issue, because I noticed later on, maybe because this is more of a close-up and we get a really big shot of Bedrock, but that little bit of coloring on him where it almost looks like colored Kirby Crackle for like his rocky texture, I think actually works really well, and I like it here. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear all throughout the issue, right? You can kind of see it on top of his head, on the arm there. It's not used consistently throughout the issue. Now, in far away shots where Bedrock's kind of smaller, I can understand, but I wonder if, you know, he did it here and then just forgot about it all the way through the rest of the book. We'll pay attention as we go through if that comes up. But I remember really kind of noticing it here on this spread page, and then not really seeing it all throughout the rest of the issue with Bedrock. So
and then we just get another 4 or 5 pages. I mean, it's just fighting back and forth. There's really nothing story plot wise, but it's pretty art, and it's a really good back and forth slugfest. Just Bedrock looking over him. Savage Dragon getting back up and punch. Good foreshortening. Panel 3.
Yeah.
Obviously, that the arm is much shorter, and he does follow up with a left jab, right knockout punch. The size difference of the two of them, yet the ability to each knock each other great distances is impressive.
Yeah, it feels like they're pretty evenly matched, even though they're not of the same proportion. And just this is a page where I'm just going to talk about Eric Larson's hand game and just how well he draws hands, fists, foreshortened hands, fingers, all of that stuff. He's just really, really good at. And I remember back in, art school, one of our teachers said, if you can draw hands and feet, you can draw anything. So kudos to Larson because he does just really awesome hands. Pretty good at the feet overall as well. And that translates to the rest of the art as well because like my teacher said, if you can do those, you can probably do anything. They are the hardest bits to draw, right?
Yeah, and a lot of the feet throughout this sequence here are all very much basically the same way that Liefeld draws feet, but nobody criticizes for it because Eric Larson just does his art very well, and he's not really hiding them, but they're very simple. Good.
I was going to say you get a sense, though, even though specifically on this page we're getting that typical kind of triangular kind of foot shape. There's the one shot on the last panel where you see the underside of the dragon's foot, which tells you, well, this guy, even though we're seeing a lot of that same triangular foot, this guy does know how to draw feet. Even that shot on the left there of Bedrock when he's getting punched and you see the underside of his foot there, right? Like the foot has dimension. It looks good.
Yeah. The action continues on, crashing into a building. There's a nice change up in the coloring of once they get into the elevator shaft of going monochromatic to show there's less light.
Yeah, that's a great. I love, it just evokes a dark shaft, right? For some reason, there's just, I don't know if they're at this point with the attack and stuff, maybe there's an alarm going off, the emergency lights are on or something. I'm not quite sure, but it just evokes kind of a darkened elevator shaft really well to go monochrome all of a sudden.
The panel 1, something about the way this action is really reminds me of John Byrne.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because I really liked as a kid. I was a fan of he did just about everything well. I mean, he was kind of the Kirby follow up when it came to drawing. He did Avengers, he did the Hulk, he did the Fantastic Four. Trying to think of he did Avengers, he did Fantastic Four, and he did X-Men. So he basically drew everybody.
All the major books. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess other than Spider-Man, he drew everybody. But yeah, something about that action reminds me of him. But I love how, they're crashing down and into the building. Then they're crashing into this elevator shaft. And then they're falling down the elevator shaft. Like it's all so action oriented. And you could just get the feel of almost like a video game, one of those combat fights where they're just bashing through this building on their way down. Which, how did they get up in this building? I don't know. But
who knows? Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, unless it's the first floor and they're going into the basement, which maybe
could be. Could be.
Yeah, and then the Image Zero coupon for all of us kids at home who did not cut out these coupons and send them off because who's reckoned 7 different books and spending $5 to get one book? Nah.
Yeah, because add all that up, 7 books at $2 a pop. What is that? $14. So it's actually ending up costing you $19 in 1992. That's a lot of money for a kid.
Yeah, I mean, if I was keeping these books, for the great value that I was going to one day be able to sell them for to put a down payment on a house, well, I can't cut these coupons out and wreck them.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous. Yeah, they did do one thing this book did well is that the coupon placement, because if you'll remember in Wildcats, the coupon is placed in the middle and literally ruins a 2-page spread. So in this one, it's properly placed. We also get this cool ad for the book that's coming up, Savage Dragon versus the Megaton Man, with Dawn Simpson, and Eric does the layouts, but they each draw their own characters. So it's a very neat issue. I love it. In fact, yeah, I've still got this page up from
Very cool.
yeah, from the battle. But that was a fun
Well, that was
one
a
to
fun
get.
book. Had
Yeah.
no idea who Megaton Man was at all back then, but yeah, that was a really fun one.
Yeah. And then another great poster. Eric did the thing of every issue in the miniseries got a poster. And of course, issue number 1 got 4 different posters. So track all of those down. I've got 3. I'm looking for that last one.
You're collecting, you've got 3 copies of issue 1, eh?
I happened to buy 3 copies because they kept showing up in dollar bins. So I just grabbed them because I was like, hey, I've got my, sitting in the box copy. I've got my reader copy. Now I got this 3rd copy for some reason. And then when I flipped through them, it coincidentally was 3 different posters. So I was like, oh, yippee. I just need the 4th one. But cool poster. About the only ad, there's barely any ads in this comic, but comic shop news, which
I remember those.
Magazine.
Yeah. Grabbing a copy
Yeah,
every week when I go to the comic shop.
Yeah, there was a lot of good magazines around our time. I mean, before Wizard came up, which of course it did, but Comic Shop News, Comic Scene. I know there's more. Those aren't the only 3, but there were a lot of good ones. Finally, after all that poster and ads, we get back to the story, and again, tons of using the blacked out area to get through pages, but this is being used in a place in the story where it's proper to do it. Like, you just got the silhouettes crashing down the elevator shaft and punching each other.
Well, I was talking about that darkened elevator shaft earlier, right? So it just makes total sense to go that way here with the silhouettes. Kind of reminiscent a little bit of maybe like some Daredevil by Frank Miller. Oh. I get a bit of that vibe here.
Yeah.
This next sequence I really like, just because I pulled out. I remember when I encountered it first, I guess when I was reading Savage Dragon number 3 would have come out actually after Spawn number 4, right? And I remember looking at it and again being like, man, this looks really familiar and doesn't look typically like Eric Larson's artwork. So I had to go back to issue number 4 of Spawn. They got it pulled up here. And what I realized is, basically, you look at the sequence from Spawn number 4, the art is exactly the same. I feel like maybe what Larson did is add a bit of just inking on top of it to make it a little bit more, for lack of a better term, Larson-y, right? So you can see, the composition exactly the same, but the line work sometimes feels just more like Larson's inking than McFarlane's in the Savage Dragon version. But it is literally the exact same sequence.
Now, I would wonder, is the dialogue different?
It's the first panel, stealing a coat and hat, is different, right? Then the next panel, there's a little bit of a blurb, a narration blurb, I guess, from Spawn, where he says, if he can't decide, maybe the fates will. I think he's talking about the Violator or the devil, whatever. And then from then on, it is the same dialogue. Rob, look, it's that new superhero. And all of the stuff is exactly the same. I saw him first. How did you know? And then if you do the page turn, we get the same kind of reveal money shot. There you go. And that's where you can really see the difference. Again, it is a Todd McFarlane layout, but if you look at the Savage Dragon version there, that is 100% some Eric Larson inking on top of it, and it is different from the inking on the Todd McFarlane produced Spawn number 4. And where you can really kind of see the difference, I think, is if you look at the face of the Savage Dragon on the TV screen in the definitely more of a McFarlane inking vibe and stuff. And then when you look at in the Savage Dragon issue, it's much more angular and more of a Eric Larson kind of character in the inking. And then the only extra bit that they add there, it's like they've got a different version of this panel down here. So this is the McFarlane version where you've got the dialogue between the 2 kids, which you still have a little bit of here. But then there's kind of a few narration boxes on top there where Spawn kind of comes in with some extra dialogue, which is not from Spawn number 4. So that, I assume, is dialogue that was added in by Eric Larson. And that last panel is completely Eric Larson drawn. That is not like redone from the Spawn issue.
So what I'd wondered, the dialogue coming from Spawn, same as with the Jim Valentino appearance of Spawn in Shadowhawk #2, where the feels so off because the character talks so like weighty and ethereal, like this like great being that's from
Like a
beyond.
mystical, Dr. Fate, Doctor Strange kind of vibe. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it's so out of place. And I got that not the same kind of characterization impression from this, but again being wrong.
It's a
Where
little bit off in that last bit, yeah. Because he says, glory seeker, I do my best to avoid such attention. I'll have none of it. That doesn't sound like how Spawn talks.
yeah, no, yeah, again, it's just like it have Todd go over this real quick. It's take 2 seconds to be like, yeah, he doesn't talk like that. Here you go. Use
Yeah,
this.
I think when using Spawn, maybe, they just kind of peripherally looked at the book and stuff and go, oh, he's kind of a mystical character from hell. And they didn't probably read, into the backstory and the Al Simmons stuff and all that. So they just kind of went with their first impression. And as you said, it's off. It's off in Savage Dragon, probably even worse in Shadowhawk #2, but it's definitely a little bit off here.
Yeah, very much. Then after the thing with the kids, and it's kind of neat. It's Rob and Eric, so it's like as if little Rob and little Eric are running around the streets, and that's fun because when Rob ends up breaking away and going and doing his comics elsewhere, and has Youngblood and has Supreme and even Judgment Day, particularly, Eric Larson's characters still appear. In Judgment Day, Eric Larson's characters are the only ones from Image that also appear in that book.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. Okay.
So even after, the bond is broken of Rob being with Image, there's still the bond between him and Eric, at least in like, yeah, man, it's cool. You can, my characters can appear there because they were in a lot of your early books.
Yeah, Todd was pretty pissed off at Rob, so I don't think he would have gotten the same privilege from the Spawn type characters that ever appeared in Youngblood.
Yeah. And obviously, yeah, others. But then they get back to the fight, and it goes back from, as we saw in the first page, when they get into the elevator shaft and they go into more of the monochromatic, but it's still very detailed. And then it goes into the silhouettes as they're more in the dark. And then we come back in on the figures, back to the monochromatic. So it's a nice touch. And then they bash their way back.
I really like that first panel. The expression on Bedrock's face is really fun.
Mm-hmm.
I think Larson does more for kind of Bedrock's design and expressions and stuff than Rob Liefeld does.
Oh yeah, just like
Rob had like two basic expressions for Bedrock, where here Larson's kind of adding a whole bunch. Much more range, I guess, in the facial expressions with Bedrock with Larson than we get with Liefeld. But Liefeld's not known for someone doing too many varied facial expressions.
Yeah, I mean, with like I think it's Spawn 12 or whatnot, but where it's going into the Youngblood base, Spawn's got to grab Chapel, and there's Bedrock playing a video game, and he looks all giddy and cartoony, and it's so well done.
Yeah, Todd even adds more to the expressions of Bedrock than Rob does ever, right? So, yeah, we keep saying this. It's almost like every artist who reinterprets the Youngblood characters do it better.
Yeah, because I mean, Todd drew him, Jim Valentino drew him, obviously Eric Larson drew him, and Jim Lee drew him. Yeah. Really, it was only Mark Silvestri who was going to have him, but then had Pitt instead. We get that, and at the bottom of this, we get that flip sequence again. So that somersault sequence, we saw it in issue 2, and he used it to avoid hitting the kid and then threw the bad guy. And we get a similar breakdown sequence of the same page of art, but with his figure, Savage Dragon, going across it. But it's not done at that very interesting angle we got it at the first time. Because the first time it was like that angled top-down view.
Yeah, it was really tough to pull off. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And this time is an easier way to get through it. Like if you were an, 1 year in as an artist, you could pull this off versus the other one.
Absolutely. No. Yeah. And I still like how it's basically one big panel, but that he splits it into 4 panels with each little bit of the sequence of the dragon's kind of action that he's doing there. So it does
Yep.
feel like he tried it last issue and he's like, hey, I kind of like this idea. And he just uses it again in a different way. And that really works. You know, he's had a bunch of pages of guys punching each other and flying, like the Savage
Hmm.
Dragon at the top, flying towards us, a lot of foreshortening and stuff. So this just feels like another different spin on a new attack throughout the whole sequence.
Yeah.
That
And
panel
like,
above of Bedrock running towards the dragon is kind of funny
yeah.
too. I like the kind of cartooniness of it. I like it.
Oh, very much. Yeah. Totally agree. You're just this big lumbering guy. I'm gonna get you.
It's almost like Tom and Jerry or Bugs Bunny or something. Like he's big,
Yeah.
heavy, and lumbering, but because of the speed lines, it looks like he's going really fast. And there's just something kind of inherently a little bit funny about that. So I like it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And keeping an eye on what you're talking about, the use of the Kirby crackle for coloring definitely did go away, and I don't see it in this one, and I
Right?
didn't see it.
That said, yeah, I thought it looked really good, and I figured because we're not getting real big close-ups of Bedrock is maybe why they don't bring it back. But we'll see. Maybe later on, there's a few bigger shots. Maybe we'll see it. But yeah, it's just kind of unfortunate because I thought it looked really good, and it was kind of again a slightly different spin on his look that augmented and added to it, made it look cool.
Also, Eric does very well something we saw Rob doing a lot, but not really effectively using it so much, where characters are constantly breaking the panels. But for Eric, he's doing it effectively. Panel one, Savage Dragon's coming out of the panel because he's coming towards us and getting knocked out. Then he uses it in panel three, just because Bedrock is so big that he has to come outside of the panel.
He doesn't
And
even
then,
fit inside the panel. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, yeah, it's used for story purposes rather than just I like the idea of this.
Yeah, it enhances things.
Mhm.
It pushes things forward and evokes even more. And he even uses it in that last panel as well with some of the flippy action from the dragon overlapping the top and the sides of the panels there. I think all of that's really cool.
And their battle rages on. Somehow they were in a building, they crashed down an elevator shaft, and then crash out the building into the seaside, which, well, okay, would be the Chicago, it's the river, and which makes sense. They're in Chicago. There is a huge river.
Going through the city. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, there would be people along it, but hey, uh, yeah, fun action sequence. I mean, this almost the entire issue is 2/3 of it are just this battle. That's like the whole issue practically.
I do like that little sequence where Bedrock gets pushed out of the building, thrown out of the building, I guess, and into the water. And just those two panels of he says, hope you can swim, punk, almost like he's like, this is it. But then he kind of has that look on his face like, oh,
Uh,
I can't just leave
yeah,
it at this, right? Like, clearly this isn't done. So he's like, I just like that subtle
yeah,
little moment there where he's like, I can almost hear him going, you know, kind of shrugging, and then he jumps in. And that shot of him jumping in, just
hmm,
awesome. The angle, the extreme angle of it, and the speed lines, just make it look like he's going super fast. Just really cool looking panel.
yeah. You do get a lot in that look of like, gotta go be the good guy.
Yeah,
Uh, and even this has been, I think you've mentioned it in some of your reviews. So now we get a water fight.
yeah,
And the ocean is the perfect place where you don't have to do a lot of detail, just like space.
yeah.
But Eric still puts in backgrounds. He still gives us some land in the back.
It's great. Yeah, and he gives us all those bubbles too, which makes sense because
Yeah.
moving
Oh,
around and all the action that's
uh-huh.
going on, you would have a ton of those. It's just if you compare again with Rob Liefeld doing an underwater scene, man, I can imagine Rob just like doing nothing, maybe adding a few bubbles, like 3 or 4 bubbles kind of popping up. Actually, there's a comic, man, I think it's that Youngblood, the new Youngblood comic that I reviewed, if I'm
Uh,
not mistaken, where there are some underwater scenes or waters.
uh-huh.
It deals with his character Roman, who's basically Namor,
Yeah.
right? Right.
Right.
And yeah, it's just he leaves it all up to the colorist, and you unless they told you they were underwater, you probably wouldn't
Mhm.
know. But with these images here, there's no question they're underwater, and even the coloring comes in and has kind of a blue hue all throughout, which again works really well here.
Yeah, the massive bubbles really helps establish that they're underwater. And one of the details I really like as I was looking at it is when Bedrock jumps, there's a wash of bubbles coming up with him, because that is literally how like the bedrock or the sand that is at the bottom of like a river, like air gets trapped under it, but when you put pressure on it or jab into it,
Yeah, it'll
it gets
release.
released.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a great detail. And if you if you didn't have a lot of experience with water, you might miss that detail. But
And
it's
I'm
a
wondering,
really good. Oh, sorry.
I'm wondering if also the sound effects are a little bit different here in the sound that they're supposed to make. Like drub
Uh-huh.
to me almost sounds like someone punching but underwater. You know what I mean? Like it's
Oh,
muffled a little bit, right?
uh-huh.
I think they kind of did that on purpose. Even the next one, I don't
Well,
know how you say that. Well, rum. Like
Yeah.
it actually kind of evokes that weird,
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of muffled sound that you would get
Because
underwater.
yeah, instead of thud, 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 it's wood, wood, wood.
Like
Yeah.
it's almost like when push in your ears and you again that muffled kind of sound that you're going to get.
Yeah, it's a good effect. And then their battle carries on, smashing out of the water. We do get
Splaboosh,
oh good, yeah.
funny sound effect.
Yeah. Yeah, it's constantly good action. It's everything's well drawn. We do finally get another little plot point. They just throw in this old lady watching the TV and her being like, "Oh, that's my Rodney," and Eric lets us in on what she's thinking by having the picture of her kid. Like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, with the face and that mohawk. Like,
very
could it
very
be?
clever. Yeah.
Yeah, and he revisits this along the way. I mean, it
I do
does
remember.
pop
Yeah,
up.
and this is one of those plot points that I mentioned earlier where like it pays off way far into the regular series, but he does come back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eventually, Rodney comes back from whatever bender or road trip he was on, and his mom, and he's like, "Mom, I'm finally back." And she was like, "Oh, how you've left me worried this whole time. I'm just in a wreck."
Had nothing to do with Savage Dragon, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's like, oh, okay, finally, that lady will stop coming around thinking I'm her Rodney.
Um, at this point, I don't know exactly where it happens. I'm going to assume maybe in that first panel, but from all the action, the fighting, and the punching, Bedrock has lost his shoulder pads. His costume's starting to rip. Right, we're starting to see a
Yep.
little bit of the Savage Dragon himself. His shirt is now completely gone.
Yeah.
Nice little touches there, where like you see the effect of the fighting and the evolution of the conflict between them.
Oh, yeah. So we actually, in the previous page, got to see Bedrock's shoulder pads coming off. One's going loose, and the
Oh
other
yeah,
one's
we do see it
floating
there.
up
Yeah,
and
yeah.
out.
So
Yeah.
the second one probably gets loose on that shot where he throws him out of the water.
Yeah. And I mean, Savage Dragon lost his shirt almost immediately. That got.
Yeah.
Then we get, oh, this is that third double page splash, and it's so awesome. I mean, now it's finally, the fight started with Savage Dragon getting punched and getting the awkward jaw, and man, it's such a good action shot. And again, it reminds me of a little bit of John Byrne. And I know that Eric doesn't really like that guy, just like Todd doesn't really like that guy, but he's still a masterful artist who did a ton of comics. And I feel like he would have done an action shot like this.
Oh, and I'm sure, whether they like him or not, they were influenced by his art. You can look up some Todd McFarlane swipes that he did, literally swiping John Byrne's Incredible Hulk stuff from just a few issues before he jumped on the title. Like John Byrne did it, then there was a few fill-in artists, and then McFarlane jumps on. And there's a lot of examples in his Incredible Hulk run of shots that he basically just swiped from the Byrne run. And there's some early Amazing Spider-Man stuff too, where he swipes poses from Byrne doing Spider-Man. I know Byrne never worked on an actual Spider-Man title, but he did Marvel 2-in-1 or something, the team up book, and there's a lot of Spider-Man team ups there. So you can check that out on. I'll just plug the Comic Swipe group on Facebook that I really like. Every once in a while, you get a post and you'll see, where the artist swiped from, and it's just kind of fun to see. What I find surprising with the splash page is how much real estate he gave to the sound effect. That's pretty ballsy in a way, because I think it really works here and helps to reinforce what's happening and the force of the blow and all that.
Yeah.
But it is covering up a lot of the art, surprisingly. It's almost half the page, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's that big, arm, shoulder area mass. But yeah, as I was saying with Byrne, like if you took this thin off and threw a cape on him, like I can just see this being a Superman punch,
Yeah.
which another character Byrne did for a while. But and then he gives Bedrock now getting the messed up jaw because it
Yeah.
definitely feels like the mouth is opened at a weird angle.
And
So
a
he's kind of
gape.
doing,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's like he's doing to him what happened to him.
Well, like
In
you're
that
saying,
first
this
one.
is basically the reverse shot of what we saw in that first double page splash.
Yeah, and then the color. Actually, it's also kind of funny. The colorist gives it so the way he colors the effect, it's almost like the light off the effect hits the figure because he uses kind of
Yes.
a
Yeah.
PQ.
Yeah. That's a nice touch. And
Yeah.
here's like I was talking about that texture that they added in the colors, the kind of Kirby crackle. This is a
Yeah.
shot to me where it would have been a good
Would have been
spot
there.
to throw a little bit of that in because we've got a really close-up shot of Bedrock. But yeah, it's like he did it on that first shot of Bedrock and then it didn't come back.
And then this one on that first double page splash, we got the effects of the punch. They had the lines behind Savage Dragon to really hammer home him getting hit. And this one, it's the reverse, and it's all the lines coming off of Savage Dragon's fist to help drive home like how strong that punch was.
How fast Bedrock is being projected forward, right?
Yeah, it's such a good shot. It's a definite like a pinup worthy. Put it on your wall.
Even all the debris flying just brings home
Yeah.
that point of everything's coming towards us, right?
Yeah, and we still get a little bit of a wall in the background, just to remind you we're in the city.
Yeah.
Never cheaps out. So their fight comes to an end, and it is a good characterization of Savage Dragon be like, "What was all this about?" And Bedrock just like, "Dude, I just wanted to see if you were good enough to join Youngblood." I'm like, what? Are you an idiot? No, I'm just a kid. Basically, is what this exchange is.
And there's that little line it said where he says it happens in Marvel comics all the time, right? So, I don't know if that's a jab or just a pun. I don't really see it as a jab necessarily. Just a funny little comment reminding us again that kind of like when I talk about the Jim Lee and the Rob Liefeld books, where like a lot of our knowledge of Marvel comics kind of helps us in understanding some of the stuff Image is trying to establish early on, right? So maybe just a little bit of an example of this, harkening back to the classic, two superheroes meeting and having to fight in Marvel comics.
Yeah. And then
also the fact that the Dragon in that last panel on this first page still has his tie is kind of funny to me. Almost like he almost looks like a male stripper somewhat. Like there's just an odd look.
He does, and flipping back, I'm like, what's that? Oh, you know what? He did have the tie through the fight.
For continuity's sake,
because it's silhouetted in, but it is in there. It never ripped off for any reason. But yeah, it's a hilarious stripper-esque detail. And he does somehow, his badge managed to stick around, so he stays in top form and I don't give a who you work for, I'm still busting you. We get another minor plot point of last issue. We were introduced to Debbie, the girl who lives nearby Dragon in his new apartment, and there was a little bit of suggestivity, them being, she has the hots for him a little bit, and then he's like, "Oh, I gotta go. I gotta get out of here. I gotta go do my job." And then here she is again, and she's like, "Oh, I've just been kicked out by my mom, and I don't know what to do because I'm a young girl by myself and can't help myself. But could you help me?" He's like, "Guess you could come into my apartment."
He knows what's going to happen.
Right. Right. Everybody knows, except we don't, except for the 4 or 5 pages that we don't get to see because they're in Image 0 and when something really does happen.
That's right. Yeah, we talked about that before we were on camera, where you read this part in issue 3 of the miniseries, then you get to the first issue of the regular series, and they mention how Debbie is dead, and you're just like, "Oh, And it's just kind of feels weird because, you know, it feels again like one of those Youngblood things where you don't see the fight or you don't see the scene that they're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's not something I expected from Eric Larson, right? So I was kind of
Mhm.
disappointed a little bit originally when I read it as a kid, only to find out, like you said, that that basic Debbie plot line
Mhm.
that explains how she was killed was meant to be in Image Comics Zero, and Image Comics Zero was meant to be released between Savage Dragon 3 and the first issue of the regular
Mhm.
series. Of course, because the other Image guys, we know the story, didn't quite
Yeah.
work out that way. The book was like a year and a half late or something. Like it was like took forever to come out. So that kind of bamboozled Eric Larson's plans for, you know, a certain kind of chronological
Mhm.
continuity happening there. He planned for it, but because of the other
Yeah.
guys, it didn't work out, right?
Yeah. Imagine being the kid who clipped the coupon, sent off the money, and like, where the heck is my book? That's an eternity. By the time that comes out, you'd like, what the heck is this? You might have
You,
moved by then.
I'm sure there's people who maybe stopped collecting comics in the time between when they sent the coupons off and then
Yeah.
hey, this shows up. You know what I mean? You're like, I'm not even into this anymore. And of
Yeah.
course, even if you were still into it, once you open the
Yeah.
book, you would not be. You would be greatly disappointed. Other than the Eric
Yeah.
Larson story, which
Yeah.
you know ties directly into the series and everything. We've talked about this too. All the other stuff is really
Yeah.
forgettable by all the other
Pretty
image founders.
inconsequential.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we get another good little like representation of Youngblood, which like Jim Valentino did it so well in the one issue he does where it's all the stuff Youngblood was supposed to be, but here they are having to show up and like, Bedrock, you're such a little kid and we have to bail you out. And then it gives us a little add-on to issue 2 hinted that there was something wrong. Like issue 1, the warehouse blows up, Frank's cousin dies, and Dragon's like, okay, I'll join the force. Issue 2, they hint at Frank being like, this isn't how I wanted it. Like, this was too far. What was too far exactly? Now he gets this phone call from the vicious circle going, hey, we know what you did. You're the guy who gave us the tip to go to
Yeah.
that warehouse. And then this hints into them manipulating him down the line,
Which
which we
plays
see.
into the first few issues of the regular series, right?
Yeah, where Dragon is being sent off to do minor stuff, but he's not getting into the real meat of going after the vicious circle. And he's like, I don't, what's going on, Frank? I know there's something. And Skullface was one of the guys who was in the warehouse. He was one of the 2
Yeah.
guys that got captured, but he was able to get off. But the other guy, who I guess is less consequential, is still sitting in jail because he was on camera threatening Dragon, so they were able to hold him for that. Something that if this were a Marvel comic, if he was still there, he couldn't have done is that this comic is, I believe, 30 pages. So it's a little longer than the average, but it ends on the right side versus standard comic. You would always turn the page, get your
Yes.
conclusion on the left, and then go into the letter column. And this one does not do that, though it could have easily by just moving this ad.
Yeah. It's weird. Can you go back a second? There's just 2 little things I want to point out.
Yeah.
One that I think is hilarious to me is how Larson establishes the police station, where it's just like, you know, a light globe that says police on it. I
Yeah.
mean,
Right.
that just feels kind of funny and hilarious to me. Like, I don't know that police stations have that. That feels almost like, I don't know, like something they did maybe in the 20s or the 30s. Like it feels kind of old timey,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then I wonder about the shot where we see Overlord and Skullface. Is that Skullface? Yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean, every time we see Overlord, he's in his penthouse tower, really high up. We
Yeah.
saw it earlier in this issue.
Right.
Now he's at his like cottage retreat or something. Like I would assume if you're Overlord, you have many, you know, homes and penthouse apartments and stuff. So maybe they're just in a different location. But to me, it feels weird to not have him in the regular location he's been in up to now. For the interior, it definitely resembles the penthouse that we've seen up to this point. But then there are trees. So in the background, so I was just a little bit confused by that. Unless he's got some sort of deck outside where he's got trees, I don't know. But again, this definitely to me feels like some kind of like high-priced cottage retreat that he's at. So it's kind of a weird detail there.
Yeah. So your first detail, the police thing, in a way, we had that in Jim Valentino's Shadowhawk, where they're suddenly at the police station, but the outside building, we couldn't tell that
Yeah,
it was a police station. And like, if he had literally done this same thing of just have the little bulb outside and be like, oh yeah, police station.
yeah.
I mean, it's wrong, but it's effective as far as cartoony storytelling. Totally works.
It's making things very obvious. So when you kind of notice it and think about it too much, you're like, that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But again, you want to establish that they're at a police station. It's a simple, effective way of doing it, right? And it doesn't take too much time.
Yeah, and then the penthouse, I totally agree with you. He's at that same building, but instead of city in the background, like rather than having like the tops of buildings,
Silhouettes,
something like
yeah,
a city silhouette, instead he does have the trees. So it's like either he's got one of those super expensive penthouses that does do plants around it because
yeah.
the rich person wants the feel of nature up in the sky, or or for whatever reason they just got to work and they decided to make this phone call from the first floor.
Could be. Maybe they're in the lobby.
But the colorist also does a nice job of keeping us in a nighttime scene because when they call Frank, clearly the lights aren't on. So it's all in this it's all in blue and in very low opacity of just a little bit of color.
It almost feels to me like maybe the windows open, the moonlight's kind of shining in, right? Kind of that
Mhm.
vibe is what I'm getting here.
Yeah. And great facial expressions to let us know that Frank is stressed.
Oh yeah.
So we get there's almost no ads in this. We do get and one of the things Image kept doing that was smart was the ads that we did get in the books always prominently were still about Image. They kind of had that with, like, oh, you want ad space? Sure. But we have to be about it in some way. This one's obviously for this bow and board shop, but like, hey, you're going to get Eric Larson boards, Dale Keown boards, Mark Silvestri. Okay, I don't know Paul Mounts, but first three, like Image, Image, Image.
Yeah, and then that little blurb plus other artists.
Yeah, yeah. There are others, but
But these are the ones you want. Yeah, exactly.
The letter page that kicked in super quick, even a cute kid drawing. I was curious about this ad because most of the time Eric did favors for the buddies along the way, the people who gave him spots when he was coming up, and friends that he worked with alongside. And I feel like Black Cat was connected to Big Bang Comics, which comes over to Image that originally.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, they were doing issues away from there, but I don't see this saying Big Bang, but I think that's what it's connected with.
Makes sense. Yeah, I don't know a lot about this Black Cat character.
Yeah, it's a very old time public domain character. And then yeah, so we get again.
Sorry, just go back one because I think this bears mentioning.
Okay.
That little fan art drawing down there of the Savage Dragon says art by Jeffrey Scott. That is J. Scott Campbell.
Oh.
Yeah, and if you pay attention to that dragon figure, you'll see kind of the J. Scott Campbell isms in his art. And this is before he was actually published by Wildstorm Studios, right? So this is kind of in an Image book. This is the first bit of J. Scott Campbell art that you can actually find. Still as a fan, but later on being published there.
Because then he goes and wins like the Nintendo Power competition or something, gets some art published, and then
he wins the Wildstorm art contest. Right, they're looking for artists.
And yeah, Wildstorm put out we're looking for writers, letters, colorists, the whole kit and caboodle. If you're this age, you can move to California. We're building a team, and man, he's
the guy who
he's the rock star of it.
For sure.
And then this was one of the major comic companies you could buy from when I was a kid. This wasn't one I went with much, but they always had these cool ads. But per usual, they were on a lot of Image books, but always the Image books were featured to let you know where you could get more Image books.
I used to pore over these and read every little bit and go, oh, there's this comic and that comic. And sometimes you discover stuff that you didn't even know about. Also, was this the first time that we see the cover to Spawn number 8 there?
Yeah.
I
I
think
wonder
so.
timeline-wise.
And this is
Uh,
like one of the first instances, I think the first instance of Todd kind of homaging or swiping himself from the Spider-Man #1 cover, right?
yeah. Yeah, the very, very popular Spider-Man #1 cover that was so very cool. Yeah, I was gonna try to pull up the date, but
Because that all
yeah,
that cover homage stuff just seems so commonplace these days. Like, every company's doing it, variant covers, things like that. But back then, it wasn't something that was, around a lot. So I remember this being one of those first instances of me looking at that and going, you can do that? You can just, take a cover design
uh-huh.
you did originally and redo it. And I
You
mean,
can
again,
swipe
this
yourself.
is Todd swiping himself, so it's not the end of the world,
Yeah.
I guess. But I was like, huh. I was like, you can do that. And now, this cover's been swiped by many different artists. You can find probably hundreds of versions of this cover by independent publishers. I remember when they reprinted the GI Joe, because Tom
Mhm.
McFarlane had become very popular, but when he was doing GI Joe, he wasn't. And there was an issue that he drew that was rejected by Larry Hama. He didn't want it published, and he had another artist redraw it. But with Tom McFarlane's popularity, they republished that abandoned issue by Tom
Uh-huh.
McFarlane. They had this artist, because Todd wasn't at Marvel anymore when they did that. They had this artist that had kind of a Todd McFarlane adjacent or similar style, and you've got Snake Eyes on that cover, basically in that same pose.
Oh.
Yeah, not the
Okay.
greatest cover. Yeah, I mean, clearly a
Uh-huh.
cash grab, that GI Joe special, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I think it's GI Joe special #1 or something like that. And again, originally not good enough to be published, but once Tom McFarlane's popular and selling millions of books, well, we're going to republish it.
Yeah. And DC finally there was Rick Veitch left Swamp Thing because
Yes,
yeah, they
yeah.
wouldn't print his story.
Well, because it
Whereas
dealt with the crucifixion of Jesus and stuff, and they
Mhm.
were they were afraid of offending people, which
Yeah.
surprises me because I mean, at that point in time, we already had Vertigo comics, which were for mature readers, and Swamp Thing was
Mhm.
under that imprint. So it just kind of feels, if you're going to
Yeah.
have an imprint for mature readers,
Yeah.
that will be where you would publish something like that. And to censor it there just feels kind of
Yeah.
counterintuitive, I guess. And Rick Veitch was really mad about it. And that's when he quit mainstream comics, basically, or working for mainstream companies.
Yeah. And that would be the readership that would be open to a story like that. And the only way you could really
Right.
have fallout would be that if people who don't read comics catch wind of this plot point put into a comic that's for adults
Yeah.
and then still go and cry like, oh, look what DC Comics is doing, and aren't comics for kids? Not this one.
It says
Well, we
mature
still need to
readers
end
right
it.
on the cover there,
Yeah.
right? And it's I think it's the old adage of any publicity is good publicity. So even if you got that negative coverage from the
Yeah.
religious people and the
Hmm.
and that kind of crowd, most times when those guys kind of start protesting stuff, it just brings more attention to your product or your movie or whatever you're
Hmm.
doing. So you'd probably just sell more books. Really, that would be the extent of the consequences of that. It would just bring more interest to your book. So yeah, DC has always been kind of cautious when it comes to that stuff, I guess.
So with my original premise of going through these issues being about like who rises and who falls and like how good the issue is, like Youngblood #1, from where you start with that, like issue 2 is like kind of the pinnacle where like you get a little more story, but the art is best you're going to see in the series. And
Yeah,
then with issue 3, it's like you actually do get the best story written issue because of the most plot points, and there's actual stuff that's about Youngblood because of product placement and having to do press conference. So
celebrity aspect. Yeah,
yeah, it's the best story one, but you can see the art start to come down because an inker's added who's very talented, but it's not as good as Rob Inkin himself. And then with with Spawn, that first issue so incredible, and then issue 2 drops a ways off, and then issue 3 comes back up a bit. And then with this one, Savage Dragon's like issue #1, so incredible. Issue 2 is not quite as good. Art wise, I mean, visually, there's no drop off. It's completely consistent, but you don't get much more in the context of story. And then in issue 3, you get breadcrumbs at best of story.
Yeah.
It's really pretty much all there in issue 1. And if you missed issue 2 and 3, you could go into the main series and you really wouldn't be lost. You have the setup. So these issues do kind of decline, but I don't feel like anyone remembers it that way because the art stayed so consistent and they loved issue 1 so much. And the ongoing series continues to have great plot points and every issue is impactful. I think people forget how little story-wise you really got in issue 2 and 3.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think a lot of what we remember, maybe not art-wise, but story-wise and plot point-wise, and the shocking, moments in Savage Dragon, really Larson starts to develop that in the regular series. The long-established characters who all of a sudden die when you turn a page and stuff like that. Maybe not so much of that happening in the miniseries. He's established a few things there, but I think those interesting plot points, story points, and shocking moments really start to ramp up and happen in the regular series for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd agree completely.
Right. Anything else?
No. I think this was one of the most concise of the videos we've done where we've moved it along, but a fun issue. Yeah, a fun issue. I mean, I had a blast looking back through it. It's such fun art, but yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you take it for what it is, basically this issue is almost a full issue slugfest. It's very fun. The art is great. If you're looking at this issue for story and plot points, there's a few, but very few and far between, I would say. But at least, there's a few plot points that lead you into the regular series where at that point, the story does kind of expand and develop much more than what we got in this issue here. Understandably, right? He does the miniseries. He's got to establish the basic kind of points of the dragon and his universe and stuff. And then when he gets to the regular series, it feels like then he could really just start pushing things forward. All the subplots that he's established here, like I've talked about before, sometimes you're like, is that ever going to resolve at any point? And surprisingly, sometimes way later on, 15, 20 issues later, he does resolve pretty much all the plot points that are left dangling early on. So maybe a bit of a drop off, story-wise with this issue, but the art definitely is consistent and as great as issue 1 and 2. So still a fun issue overall.
Yeah, absolutely. All
right. Well, I guess we'll leave it there for today, guys. If you're still watching the channel and you are subscribed, thank you so much. Really do appreciate all the support. If you're watching but you're not subscribed, please do so below. It only takes a quick second for you, and it helps the channel grow, helps get us out there to other people who are into comic books, just like we are. Speaking of comic books, Mark has got his books at Big Cartel. You can check out Kayfabe, The Death of a Super, Guano Guy, and Darkest Image. There you go.
Yeah, man, this was such a fun fan book. But yeah, Darkest Image, Guano Guy, and Kayfabe, Death of a Super, those are all still fun books, and I'm working on new ones, so eventually I'll be able to blast out about those.
Some new stuff, yeah, for sure. And I've got my comics as well that you can check out at KingComics.CA. Right now, you've got the Big Baby series, 13 issues, and the STARCRASHER one-shot. I've got some new stuff I'm working on as well that I don't want to say anything until I'm kind of further ahead on. And then at some point, both Mark and I guess, are going to be announcing some new projects coming out through the channel, through one of our videos here. So, Mark, anything else you want to add?
Nada. Good.
That is it. All right. Everyone out there, thank you so much for watching. Really do appreciate it. And everyone out there, have yourselves an awesome day. Thanks again, Mark.
Absolutely, buddy.
Like, subscribe, like, subscribe.
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents STARCRASHER one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KingComics.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.